Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DeFrancesco, your personal financial technician. Whether you've had years of success in your business or just starting out, High Lift Financial can help you create a vision for your business, life, and family, and align these for generational wealth. So as they say, what happens in your life affects your business. And now, on to the show. Well, hello and welcome to Your Business, Your Life with me, your host, Matt DeFrancesco. And hey, I'm really excited about our guest today because, as you know, the title of this podcast is Your Business, Your Life. And the whole philosophy behind it, again, is that your life affects your business and your business affects your life. So I've got as my guest today, Dr. LaGuardia. He's a successful doctor, entrepreneur, and consultant, and he's a lifelong leader in the fields of physical fitness, nutrition, wellness, neurology, neuroscience, brain function, and the habits of success. Now, I'm going to let Dr. J kind of get in more deal about his background, but he attended Life University, which is one of the leading chiropractic colleges in the country, and he received his doctorate in chiropractic. His postgraduate work was in the special certifications in wellness and lifestyle. And so he's been working for 25 years in a chiropractic business. He's also ventured off into other business dealings in commercial real estate and in business development. And he's just through his experience has acquired a lot of knowledge in how to find this, I guess, for lack of a better term, balance in our life. So he's a highly sought after speaker, both in the U.S. internationally. And again, his main focus is to maximize human potential. So, and on a personal note, Dr. J, he's married to his college sweetheart, Dr. Pam, and they have 3 children, Elise, Anthony, and Taylor, and they're all successful in their own chosen field. So enough from me. I think we want to hear from Dr. J. So Dr. J, hey, it's great having you on the program today.
Matt, thank you for inviting me to be on and talk about something I'm really passionate about. And I'm a real fan of the work that you're doing, because it's very synergistic to the work that we're doing. So the more we empower small business entrepreneurs, both personally and professionally, the more impact we can have, in our communities and nationally.
I completely agree. And I think that's really what a lot of this comes down to. And I like to have guests on that are really just passionate about helping the small to mid-sized business owner to gain the things that they want in life, not just professionally, but also in their personal life. So I think you're just going to have some great insights for the audience. So Dr. J, with, I kind of gave this introduction, and I know I didn't even scratch the surface on it. So I wondered if you could maybe go into just maybe a little more detail on just kind of your story and how that's led you to do the work that you're doing now.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. In 57 years, the story can, it morphs and changes, as you can tell, based on my bio. I've done a lot of different things, but right. I would say really, I was entrepreneurial as a 12-year-old. I had a lawn business. I shoveled snow. I knew nothing about entrepreneurship. It wasn't even a term at that point, but I was a hustler, and I knew that working for myself was something I always wanted to do. Fast forward probably about 8 years or so. I was in school to be an orthopedic surgeon, and I got hurt playing college football. And my mother had suggested I see a chiropractor because the traditional athletic trainers and treatments weren't working. And I went and saw this doc, and it was the coolest experience I'd ever had because it was the first time I went to a doctor, and it was a fun experience. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't nervous. It was just really chill, low key. And he helped me. He got me back on the field. Felt great. And shortly thereafter, I saw him at the college I was attending to. He was there one evening doing a lecture, and I popped in just to stop and say hello. And again, thank him for the great work he did. And he was talking about the philosophy of chiropractic, that health comes from within, and that if we optimize our well-being as it relates to mental, physical, and spiritual, the body can express itself to its full potential. And as a result, we can live our best life. And I remember sitting there going, holy crap. That's really cool. That's right. What I want to do. Right. So I remember going home telling my parents that, hey, I'm going to give up this orthopedic surgeon thing and I'm going to be a chiropractor. And that didn't go over really well for a short period of time, but they've embraced it, obviously, and we're very supportive. And so that became my journey into chiropractic. And went down to Life University, as you mentioned. I met my wife, who's from Wisconsin here, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. That's how I wound up here. Right. And her dad was one of the foremost preeminent chiropractors in the world at the time. And so being able to mentor under him was such a tremendous opportunity. Although this is not a place I wanted to live at the time, it was too good to pass up. And he taught me about what it is to be a professional, to show up each day at your very best, irregardless of what's going on at home and how you're feeling. Mm-hmm. He said, when you show up each day to serve your clients, you need to show up your very best, because that's what they deserve. They don't want to hear about your issues and what's happening. It's all about them. And then he got me interested in learning about business, and he kind of got me interested in real estate as well too. So he was such a huge influence in my life. And we were literally going to move back to the East Coast into actually the Pennsylvania, Western Jersey area, and open up a practice. And he presented an opportunity to purchase the practice that he had started, which was one of the largest clinics in the country. And the opportunity was to go. We stayed. And we turned that one practice. We tripled that practice again, which is one of the largest practices in the world at the time. We tripled that practice in 7 years. And then we opened up 10 clinics we had at one time. And so the whole entrepreneurial process is something that, I became very fascinated with. And I struggled mightily, right? So like most people, your mess becomes your message. And so therefore, when I first really started getting into running the business, I was awful, Matt. Uh-huh. I didn't know how to lead a team. I didn't understand what running a business was like, how to read spreadsheets. And I mean, I was trained to be a chiropractor, not a business person. Right. And I was very good at the clinical side, but we had a revolving door of employees coming in and out. The practice was flat, even regressing at that time after we had purchased it. And I said, you know what? I got to put my pride aside. And my wife said, hey, look, a friend of ours just started working with this coach. Would you speak with him? Oh, I said, all right, I got nothing to lose, because my wife was my business partner. Yeah. Right? So struggling in the office meant struggling at home. Right. I was going to say that doesn't always work. Right. It's very, very difficult to separate the two. And we were young, right? Just starting out with a young family. And I knew it was important to her. I said, sure. So I'll speak with him. So we jump on the line. He says, tell me everything that's going wrong with your business. Mm-hmm. So 5 minutes, I just vomited on him. And at the end of that, it was very cathartic. It was like, oh, that felt good to get off my chest. Finally, I get someone to listen to me. Right. And there was this long pause. I actually thought he hung up. And I said, are you still there? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I know exactly what's going on. I say, great. Someone's going to give you the magic bullet, the magic cure, right? Right. He said, Jay, your business and your life is waiting for a leader to show up, and it's not you. Ooh. And from that moment on, right, I took ownership and responsibility, because I was blaming everyone and everything outside myself for the conditions in my life, rather than looking in the right place, which was in the mirror. And it was the first time someone had held me accountable. And I said, well, this guy pegged me. So I started work with him, started really diving into this leadership thing, diving into understanding business. And over a period of time, as I mentioned, over the next 7 years, we wound up tripling that, that practice. And it led to all these other things that it turned into our lives, down the road. Oh, and it's so true. And I think so many of us have that same story. I mean, we were talking beforehand, and I explained my situation was exactly the same, where, I started working with this coach, and he started enlightening me into the head trash that I had, and how I needed to become a leader. And I needed to, if you're going to fix the problem, you got to fix yourself first. And right. I think that's a hard conversation to have with yourself, but it's so vitally important. No question. And he taught me about the 3 different types of leadership, which is inward, outward, and personal. Right. Okay. What I really lacked was the personal. I couldn't lead myself. How could I lead other people? Mm-hmm. I was living a life of complete incongruency. And also ignorance. In other words, I didn't understand. Like, we hear this term leadership thrown out, and we assume we know what it is, but I had to really study and learn what personal leadership was. And as I did, and I started to grow, then I had the authority to lead other people and then to build a team and coalesce around a mutual vision that excited them, that they drove our business. When I say we tripled the business, it wasn't about me.
Oh, right.
It was about the people around us who bought into the vision and just took it and ran with it. And I really became kind of the guide more than anything.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like that you created a culture around what you had become. Am I correct about that? Yeah, and I preach that to a number of my business owners because, they suffer from the same sort of the stagnation that's there. And, the first thing is that we talk about is working on yourself. But then now once you've created, once you've developed yourself from the inside out, as Covey talks about, and Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, now you have to project that and start to enforce that culture within your business. And it's amazing when they do that, how all of a sudden things begin to flow properly. So
you and I discussed before we jumped on the live podcast here was that, it's who we are that determines how well what it is that we do. Right.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when people reach out to us, they're looking for some magic bullet or cure to transcend their business to a new level.
Right.
Well, if people recall Peter Drucker, who is considered probably one of the most preeminent business minds in the 20th century, he has a very famous quote, and he said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." Right? And then I watched a video by Tony Sheesh, actually, the former Tony Sheesh, he passed away not long ago, who was the founder of Zappos. Prior to starting Zappos, he had started another billion-dollar company. And after 3 years, that company had lost its way. In other words, he said he was hiring for talent and not culture. Right. And as a result, he lost the culture and the business got away from him. So he said, I'd rather sell the business and start over and start hiring for culture. And then he started Zappos, and everyone knows the story of Zappos, right?
Right.
And so Tony had said, the most important sheet in your business, the most crumpled sheet should be that your 4 foundational pieces, your core purpose, your core mission, your core values, and your core beliefs.
Right.
Every single day, you need to be reviewing that, knowing it and owning it. Everyone within your organization needs to, because all your decisions are based and made upon that. And then you know if you're going in the right direction or not.
Right. Oh, exactly. It's interesting you say that. I was just thinking about, you mentioned you had played football in college, and my son played, and I remember going on the recruiting trail with him. And what was interesting was there were athletes there that were, in many cases, they had the size, they had the speed, but they didn't have the proper attitudes. And the formidable programs, I think the programs that have sustain themselves for many years were the ones that not only look at the player's athletic ability, but also how they are personally and how they are from the inside out. I mean, you look in pro football, and again, I'm from Western Pennsylvania, so I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. But one of probably the biggest factor in success in Pittsburgh is not just the talent that they bring in, but also how these people are personally, how they, do they have the right culture that fits in with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I know Green Bay is the same way too. It would much to Aaron Rodgers' contention in a lot of cases.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, as I said, again, the title of this podcast, Your Business, Your Life, and we've highlighted this idea of how they affect each other. And there's so many factors out there that are putting strains on families and families of business owners. We've got pandemics, we've got divorces, we got deaths, all these type of things. Could you explain how you help business owners to maximize their potential in all the different areas of their life?
So I have a podcast called Power, Passion, Prosperity. It's about empowering dreams, igniting passion, and accelerating prosperity in the key areas of life: mental, physical, spiritual, and financial.
Right.
And it really is at the core essence of our best life. So some people spend a lot of time on improving their physical well-being. They exercise, they eat right, or they exercise and don't eat right.
Right.
But they spend time doing the physical part, right? But they spend no time on the spiritual side. And I'm not talking so much religion, but it can be religion, right? Having faith. In fact, one of the elements of the success formula that I talk about, faith is a big part of it, but it's really a faith in oneself. It's a belief in oneself. And so what do you do to nourish that each day, right? How do you work on eliminating stress in your life, or how do you handle it and process it in an effective way? That's why I talk about the 8 habits of success. So there's the spiritual side of it. And then, of course, there's the, making sure that at home is taken care of. You got great relationships with your significant other or kids if you have it. And you can have, I tell my clients all the time, you can have all this. And the byproduct of having an exceptional physical well-being, great relationships, and a great spiritual connection is you could have all the prosperity in life you could ever possibly imagine. And I'm not just talking money, right? Because prosperity comes in many, many forms.
Exactly.
So we have dealt over the last 22 months, can we say probably one of the most, certainly the most extraordinary time in my life, maybe one of the most extraordinary times in history that we've dealt with. So what has delineated the difference between people who've come through this really well and those who have struggled? Number one, the ones who have done really well, they take care of themselves. They eat right. They stay away from a pro-inflammatory diet. They supplement. We know one of the major causes of a potential bad outcome of getting COVID is low vitamin D3 levels. Right? So supplementation is very, very important. Exercise. We know that enhances immune function. So if we're doing the right things physically and eating well, your chance, in fact, I was just looking at some research because I'm preparing for another podcast on these particular things. Obesity has increased 30% in a year.
Wow.
In the last year. Diabetes is up 15%. It's the highest it's ever been. And 40% of the people who've died with COVID or from COVID, however you want to classify, have had diabetes.
You're right.
So much of the risks can be mitigated based on lifestyle choices.
Right. This is type 2 diabetes, which is preventable.
Correct.
Right. Okay. No, that's fascinating. Good.
Yeah, and then of course, right, I talked about the spiritual side is taking care of the mindset, right? One of the things I did last fall after the election was I eliminated all media from my life because it's nothing but pure toxicity.
Oh, yes.
And what we allow in cultivates. So the more toxicity we allow inside ourselves, inside our mind, Gandhi said, never let someone with dirty feet walk in the garden of your mind. Right. So the more toxicity we allow in, it begins to cultivate. It makes us angry and upset and frustrated and depressed and whatever it might be. So I eliminated all that crap from my life, and I've never had a better year. Right. Now, it doesn't mean I don't stay informed. All right. Or stay ignorant with what's going on, but I eliminate all that toxicity. That also includes in your relationships. Right. This is a great time of the year. I have my clients assess their 5 most closest relationships. Do those relationships nourish you? Do they build you up in strong and noble thought? Or do they break you down? And sometimes those relationships are family members. And those are the hard ones, but you have to create barriers, right? Of what you allow, what you won't allow. So these are some of the things that I've worked with my clients. And it's funny, the ones that have really taken it serious have come through this quite well and have found more opportunities within their business as a result.
That's exactly right. I wanted to touch on the news thing because I remember I was in the business back in 2008. All right, the Great Recession. And I used to have a TV in my office that was just constantly had CNBC on. And I was basically trained that way because my managers had grown up back in the old ticker tape days. And so when those went away, you put on CNBC so you'd see the ticker and all that stuff. And I was just in this funk. And one Saturday I was in and I was just kind of cleaning my office, just trying to get organized. And I saw this TV and I'm like, I'm taking this thing out. I took it out. It was amazing how my attitude changed because I wasn't watching that stuff. And I'm like you, I don't watch a TV. I have my phone set, any important news, I get an alert on it. And, and half the time it's not even that important when I get the alert, but just not to be inundating our brains. And I get clients all the time who are calling me panicking about, should we make changes in our portfolio? Should we do this? Should we do that? And my first thing I say to them is turn off the news, turn it off, And it's amazing if they do it. Some do, some don't. But if they do it, how they're just amazed the change in their mindset by doing that.
I agree. And listen, it doesn't matter right or left or middle. It's still propagandist indoctrination.
Right. Exactly.
And it's there to trigger your buttons. Right? And those triggers is to elicit a response to either entrench you in your beliefs, right? Or to move you away. Either way, it's a really negative experience. And one thing I want to touch on quickly, because I know you're big into mindset.
Right.
90% of our subconscious mind is developed by the age of 12, which means that our belief systems, whether accepted, rooted, or given to us by mother, father, teacher, preacher, become hardwired in our brain, literally, right? It builds these neural bonds from synapse to synapse. It creates these tracks, these pathways, neural pathways. And they become very, very difficult to break unless you know the steps to break those pathways. And that can only be done consciously, right? You can't do it in an unconscious level. And so it's one of the things that's so important to assess and evaluate with anybody that I work with, because if they don't understand what are their belief systems and help them either identify, okay, this is something I do believe in or something I want to change, right? And then giving them the tools to break that, because your business can never outgrow you.
Right.
So if you're stuck in the same mental loop over and over, guess what? You get the same thing over and over. And your business may grow 5, 6, 7, 8%, but it will never transcend beyond that percent unless you change your mindset.
Oh, so true. It's interesting because I was telling you when we were talking beforehand about when I started working with my coach, and he was all about mindset. So every year, and actually in mid-November, I'm going to be going to his strategic planning conference, which I go to every year. And we spend a whole day on, he calls it MyOS, my operating system. Right. And we explore these 4 areas: beliefs, values and rules, internal dialogue, and our self-image, and really gets us to he tells us it's got to be painful. If it's not painful, you're not doing it right. Yes. But then, and I want to ask you about this, because once we've developed kind of this new mindset, we create these like quarterly game plans, and the first page is all just about our new mindset, and reading those every morning. And he's really big, and this was something that transformed my business, was the idea of the morning ritual.
Yes.
And is that, I want to ask you, is that something you talk about? And if you do, can you explain why that first hour to 2 hours of the day is so important for the business owner, just to work on themselves, and just how it can reflect their whole day, week, month, year?
Yeah, absolutely. So you and I referenced earlier about Tony Robbins, and many, many, many years ago, I took a program with Tony, and he talked about how important it is to get your mindset right, right? Intentionally. And I teach a program as well too about being intentional. And your mind is in the most suggestive state first thing in the morning. It hasn't been dumped on by work stuff or family stuff. And so you tend to be clearer of mind. Plus you're closest to your theta state. So in other words, your brain goes through different brain waves. I'm a big proponent of meditation or prayer.
Right.
And essentially what this does is it gets you from beta, which is consciousness, to alpha, which is just below consciousness before you go to sleep. And then there's theta. And theta is when you're in a meditative state. And that's when the mind is the most suggestive to change. It's literally when you're in the subconscious mind, you can break those old linkages and begin to create new belief systems. And so because your mind's not cluttered, and because you're closest to theta and you can get there pretty quickly, the morning is the best time to implement this morning ritual, morning routine, whatever you want to call it, because you had mentioned about mindset change. And I'll tell your audience this: changing mindset is really hard. You talked about the pain, right? the older you are, the more ensconced those belief systems are, the harder it becomes.
Right.
But the reward, Matt, is so incredible, right? When I went through this process, because early on, based on my experiences as a child, my father left when my mother got pregnant. I didn't meet him till I was 6. I grew up with all this anger and resentment, and it was really destructive in every aspect of my life, and I had to work this out and figure how to get through this, or it was going to destroy the things that mattered most to me, which was, I remember as a young child saying, my highest value was to get married and have a family and to raise kids and to be the dad I didn't have. Even as a young kid, I knew that was my highest value.
Wow.
And this anger and resentment I had not dealt with was going to destroy the most highest value that I had in my life. And so that mentor I spoke to, he realized it and saw it in me. And that's how he taught me. And then at that time, I think when I first started, I was about 28. I had read Think and Grow Rich at 17, but it was more conceptual than really practical for me. It was really got into the practical side of it when I was about 28. It was very hard, very difficult, a lot of pain. You had talked about going through the pain, right? You could either be in the pain of sameness or pain of change. And I've lived by that moniker for my entire life. I'd rather be in the pain of change because I know the other side's going to be way better.
Right.
So I went through this whole process, and my wife will tell you, I'm not the same guy. Well, who is after 30 years? But I'm not that guy anymore because I worked on it intentionally. And the morning routine is exactly what helped me do it.
Exactly. I swear by that. And I've even gotten to the point, like, I don't even check my email until I get into the office and I'm starting my day. I mean, and I know a lot of people, it's like, well, that's one of the things I got to do. Or turning on the news while you're eating breakfast, those type of things. You just can't do that. And it's amazing. One thing, when you were talking about this idea of meditation and prayer, that's one thing that's part of my morning ritual. And I being a Christian, I go into prayer, and it was just this past week. And my wife and I were kind of like, there was something that was like eating at her, and I just couldn't get my hands on it. And so I was praying about this, and it was funny, as I was just kind of sit there, because I kind of, have my like little warm up and then, kind of read some scripture. And then I just tried to kind of meditate on that and allow myself into go more of a contemplative state. And all of a sudden it just kind of, something popped into my head she told me about some friends of hers that spend every Saturday. They go over to this little town that's maybe about 30 minutes away from us. It's very colonial, and they have breakfast and they go to the shops and things like that. And it popped into my head, and all of a sudden the message became clear. She wants me to spend more just quality time with her. And so it was funny because I got home and I said, hey, Saturday, do you want to go over to this town, we'll have breakfast and we can kind of spend the morning over there? And she was like, yes. And I'm like, I'm sorry. She's like, what prompted that? I'm like, I don't know, my knucklehead brain. It didn't click with me. You know what I mean? But how, again, it's, and whether you believe it's divinely inspired, which I believe, or it's just our subconscious mind kind of opening up and kind of revealing these things to us. I think that morning period when you can just meditate and be quiet, I think quiet is one of the key things. We have so much noise that's around us that we need to just get quiet sometime during the day. And I think the morning is the best time to do that.
Dr. Wayne Dyer said that God speaks in only one language, and that language is silence.
Right.
So until you clear the noise and the clutter, it's the only way you can be inspired from within or from above. I tend to think it's both, right? It's the connection of above, down, inside, out.
Exactly.
But we suppress that because we need constant stimulation.
Right.
He also talked about the gap between your thoughts. And that's really what meditation is to slow your brain waves down, to get the gap between your thoughts. So, I've been practicing meditation for 25 years. Mm-hmm. There are times, it's not all the time, but there are times where I can find myself being absent of thought. I can even now, like, for minutes. I mean, think about not thinking of anything or nothing running through your head. That is pure bliss. I've never had a more blissful experience because it's just being present. And that's where the inspiration comes from, right? Inspired in Latin means in spiritu, right? Is to breathe, to be one with your creator.
Right.
And so just to be in breath, it's truly magical. And it's why I'm so passionate about teaching people about this. And we, similar to what you're doing, we host our GPS to Success Summit. And it's a whole day people working on themselves, right? And learning these tools and reaffirming these tools, because true high performers invest in themselves. It doesn't happen by accident.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one thing my coach preaches, is that every business owner should be investing minimum 10% of your revenue. And you can figure out if it's your gross or your net, however you do it, but 10% into yourself. And it's funny, because again, being an investment guy, being in financial services, people always ask me, hey, I'm looking for a really good investment. What's the best thing? What's the thing I can buy? And I tell them it's yourself.
Yes.
It's yourself. I said, go to a conference, read a book, and it's funny, the kids of a lot of my clients, I get situations where they want to create a family legacy, and that's kind of where my sweet spot is. But, a lot of times the parents think that the kids are going to just learn the business through osmosis. And it doesn't work that way. And so a lot of times what I do is I start working with them, but it's more on, again, the mindset and creating this, helping them become the best version of themselves. When they can do that, then we can learn the business aspects, the aspects of the business and how to financially succeed.
I also think it's really important just to be a great mentor to your kids, right?
Yeah.
I'm so blessed and grateful. We have 3 amazing kids. I humbly say I had very little to do with that. in a sense, the credit I take is I'm authentic. I live how I speak. So what I'm sharing with you is how I live.
Right.
And so I didn't tell them what to do. I let them watch what I do. And they naturally went in that route, right? As far as, being influential, it's interesting. I was at a college speaking to a bunch of students, and I talked about this, investing in yourself.
Right.
And one of the students raised their hand and said, Dr. J, how much have you invested in yourself? Almost like I got you. And I had to stop and think about it. And I said to him, conservatively in my lifetime, way over $500,000.
Oh, yeah.
Way over $500,000.
Yeah.
And there was this collective gasp in the room. And I said, look, I didn't get to where I am by accident. It took a lot of work. And I'm still a process in work. I believe this personal growth is something I'm going to do till the day I die, because there's always shifts, right? There's always checks and balances. You're going to be crushing it here, and then this may fall off a little bit, right? No one's perfect, and no one's on a straight line trajectory. It's checks and balances.
Yep, you hit the nail on the head. And I think the word that jumped out of me is this idea of authenticity. And I think when we can be authentic and we can be happy who we are, we become the greatest example to our clients, to our customers, and most especially to our family, especially our kids. And I'm a real big proponent in the kids have to find their own way. We can help to guide them, but if we're authentic and they see how we act, and it's in complete authenticity, they're going to find their way. And I think that's the greatest gift that we can give them.
I agree. And the benefit of being authentic is you vibrate at a much higher tone, right?
Right.
For listeners who don't understand, there's this tone scale. So at the very top of the tone scale is the ultimate energy of the universe, which is love. And there's nothing greater than love, right?
That's
Just below that is gratitude. And at the bottom of the scale is death. There's no energy left, right? But just above that is apathy. I don't care about anything. I don't care, right? That's the worst place to be, because you're just one step above death. That's where your tone is.
Right.
So we fall on this scale. We can elevate our tone and move up the scale. And the higher we live and the greater energy, the higher vibration, the greater we experience life's abundance in every aspect of it. And it's such a beautiful thing once you learn and understand how to work within this.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. So this has been fantastic, Jay. We could probably go on forever, but I know we're getting close on the time. So I have one question for you before I ask you. Tell the audience how people can find you and how they can use you. But I know you went to Life University and you were a college football player in undergrad. Did you play rugby?
Oh, great question. I was recruited to play rugby.
Okay.
All seriousness, but before I finished playing football, and actually this ended my football career, I blew out my ACL.
Right.
And I said, you know what? I better start just focusing on my academics because I watch those guys play rugby. Man, that's a brutal game.
Oh, I know. Well, see, I was a rugby player in college, okay. and so that's why I'm very familiar with Life University. So I had to ask the question before we left. But anyway, Dr. J. So I mean, you've given us some great feedback. I know on your website you've got a lot of different avenues that people can get in touch with you or use you. Could you highlight some areas that, like, first off, where people can find you and in what areas you can be of help to them?
It's a great question. I would answer it in this way. If you're somebody who is looking to grow personally and professionally and wants to learn how to do it, mm-hmm. I'm a process guy. So I like to help people, give them a process, something easy to follow. And that's really where our niche is, whether it's their health, their physical, mental, spiritual, financial, their business, whatever it might be. Because we really look at it as whole. A business will never outgrow its leader. So If you want to grow your business and grow your life, that's essentially where our sweet spot. But I want to thank you, Matt, first for having me on, give me an opportunity to share. I love doing this. You can tell based on my energy, my passion is something I'm wholeheartedly in. And I could tell by, just yours as well, too. It's very similar. But people can find us at our website, which is our podcast. We actually have multiple websites. It's powerpassionprosperity.com, all one word. And that's the name of the podcast. The brand is Triple P Life. And you could also find us there. Or you can check me out on Facebook, Instagram, at Dr. J. LaGuardia. But I always say, if you really you have a question for me, just email me. It's really simple. Dr. J, DRJAY at tripleplife.com. I'll answer your questions.
That's awesome. And again, we'll have all this in the show notes too, so that you can find Dr. J very easily. But I really enjoyed this. And Dr. J, there's so much that's here. We could probably just on one of the topics that we discussed, go do a whole podcast on. And, if you're open to it, maybe we can schedule a time where we can maybe focus on one area and get into much more depth with that if you're open to it.
I'd be happy, see what your listeners really touched on them, and we can do a deep dive. I'd be happy to do that, Matt.
Okay, so that's great. Thank you, Dr. J, so much for being on the podcast. And the last thanks goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you for listening to Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt DiFrancesco. If you've not subscribed to the podcast, please, you can click the subscribe now button below. And that way, anytime a new episode comes up, it'll be delivered directly into your device. And also, if you like this podcast or the video, if you're watching on YouTube, please give us a 5-star review. That way we can reach more listeners. So anyway, with that, I just want to thank you all for tuning in. Take care and make every day your best day. So God bless and have a great day. Hey, I really want to thank you for listening to the Your Business, Your Life podcast. If you want to be notified when new episodes become available, click the subscribe button below.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of High Lift Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investment, legal, or tax advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified professional with any questions you may have regarding your business or personal planning. DiFrancesco Financial Concierge, LLC, DBA High Lift Financial, is a registered investment advisor. Registration with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission or any state security authority does not imply a certain level of skill or training.